St. Hill Manor in Sussex is the Scientologists' Mecca, and Lafayette Ron Hubbard, their American founder, is the one true prophet.
Now, we've had other great leaders in the past. Well, let's take Jesus Christ. He wrote nothing, and there weren't tape recorders in that time. So consequently, the Gospels were written by somebody else many years afterwards. And we want to avoid that in Scientology, that we do get the words of the founder and discoverer of these truths.
Everything at St. Hill is touched by Ron Hubbard's personality. All tapes contain his voice, all but a few of the textbooks are his, and all Scientologists regard him with awe.
Sapiens call leadership.
How he's getting along, and whether we should continue the process or not, he will tell us no. No.
Hitler.
Don't.
On the Western Front as a corporal.
He isn't talking.
This young Austrian
That isn't he. That isn't his motivation at all.
Had a few too many shells.
I think he's very brave. And he's just a wonderful man. You know, we can have, I know we have 10-year-old children on some of the courses, same course as a 50, 60-year-old man. And each one understands because it's so simple and so beautifully laid out.
He's the one person that I have known to always validate and that anyone I've ever seen him talk with or any group I've ever seen him talk to know that they are important, that what they can do matters. And with a man like this, you don't criticize.
Lafayette Ron Hubbard is 56, a 3 times married American ex-science fiction writer and Hollywood scriptwriter. His one-man religion, Scientology, dates from 1950, when he launched an early version on an American public obsessed with amateur psychologizing. It first appeared in a popular science fiction magazine, but a best-selling book followed, and it caught on. That is, until the first public presentation of a clear proved a fiasco, and the next fad took over. It was condemned by the American Psychological Association and then ignored. The movement hopscotched from California to Kansas to Arizona, and eventually Hubbard decided to move the world headquarters to England. He bought St. Hill Manor in Sussex and founded 2 companies with a prospective share capital of £500,000. The week we filmed, the weekly income graph of St. Hill stood at £23,000. Running costs are hard to reckon up, but in July '66, Hubbard issued a bulletin recommending that they shouldn't go above £5,500. So profits for the week we filmed must have been at least £10,000, equivalent to £500,000 a year. Since all dollar payments go into an external account, and since Hubbard gets 10% from all other organizations, he's an exceedingly rich man. With large investments in Rhodesia and elsewhere, a Swiss bank account and a yacht with which he has been for the last 6 months, he can go anywhere at any time. A goodwill payment of £100,000 was paid to him by the organization, and Scientology now largely operates without him. Few Scientologists know, however, either where Hubbard is or where the money goes. They work for the organization for a pittance or simply pay up. A booklet we received after filming requested advance payment of £942, 8 shillings for courses they would like us to take.
Well, in Scientology, being here, one doesn't want to criticize Scientology. There is no need, because you're here and it's for you, and that's fine.
But what would happen if one day you were dissatisfied? What would happen if you did criticize?
I wouldn't.
Why not?
Because there would not be anything that I would be dissatisfied with.
But one day there might be, mightn't there?
Not for me.
How do you know?
I know.
But how?
It's just a knowingness, the truth.
I'll try once again. Okay.
Any truth. One doesn't feel anything except knowingness and truth.
But Barbara, you might change one day. The things that you think might change. You might change your mind.
Well, change is originated by me. And if it's truth, then I won't want to change. I won't want to deviate from the truth.
What do you think of people who do criticize Scientology?
That's fine. They just haven't discovered Scientology.
What do you think of people who know something about Scientology, who still criticize Scientology?
They don't know Scientology.
What do you think of people who have been Scientologists, who criticize Scientology?
Then they have lost something which only they can find, and once having found it, they will be back.
Criticism is classified somewhere between a misdemeanor and a crime. Public criticism is a high crime, worse than theft, mayhem, or seduction of a minor. The punishment is usually excommunication. This is an order put out by Hubbard's ethics office.
Dr. Carl Kemeny is hereby declared a suppressive person for telling a Scientologist that Scientology wouldn't last long, that Scientology is a form of brainwashing and mesmerizes people into believing the philosophy. Not to be communicated with. Declared fair game.
1966, or in the new style, the year of our Lord 16. Hubbard Communications Office, year 16.
Details of how to go about dealing with attackers of Scientology. Here's what you do. Soon as one of these threats starts, you get a Scientologist or Scientologists to investigate noisily. You find out where he or she works or worked, doctor, dentist, friends, neighbors, anyone, and phone them up and say, I'm investigating Mr. Mrs. ... for criminal activities as she has been trying to prevent man's freedom.
Office of L. Ron Hubbard, year 16.
Enquiry Roomer, UK, planning. Get a detective on that lord's past to unearth the titbits. They're there. Stress sex and blood in psychiatry and collect data and mount an all-out attack in the press on psychiatry.
Well, I sort of became one and then decided that I was one. I was not very happy. I'd have a degree in art history from NYU. I'd graduated and was getting ready to go to Europe for, I was hoping for a year. And I was all of a sudden having boyfriend trouble and getting very, very nervous and upset. And didn't know what was wrong, and when I had gotten upset like this, my family doctor had given me tranquilizers. So I went back to him and said, I need more tranquilizers because I'm going to Europe and I'm nervous. And at the same time as all this was happening, my boss called me up one day and said, don't bother coming back to work until you've taken a 2-week vacation and gotten your problems straightened out. I hung up the phone and got ready for a really good cry, and a friend of mine called me and said, you know, what's the matter? And I said, and he said, oh, well, come to Scientology. They can help you with that. Scientology, poof, I didn't need Scientology. I needed tranquilizers or a psychiatrist, or, you know, I was in trouble. And he was very, very strong about this, you know, get down here and get yourself straightened out. And I didn't have the strength to say, no, I'll do what I want. So I went. And I didn't know what it was. And they said, well, you pay such and such amount of money and you get this auditing. I said, what's that? And they said, oh, here's a book. And I didn't have the concentration to read a book, so I went back and I said, I'll take it, just whatever it is. So I went in and I got some of this stuff called auditing, which is where you just hold these cans on the meter and talk for a while and answer questions. And before I got the auditing, they said, you can't take the tranquilizers. You're not allowed to have any drugs when you're doing this. So the night before, I hadn't taken any drugs. And the next day, I wasn't shaking anymore. And I didn't take any tranquilizers. And I went in, they said, how do you feel? And I was a little unhappy that it was all over in one day. And I said, well, is this all? You know, what is this? And I got furious. And they looked at me and they said, okay. And I got furious because they weren't getting upset. And they said, well, why don't you, take a course and find out what it's about. And I did, started, and the next day I was learning things I'd always wanted to know. And I've been doing it ever since.
Scientology has been the last straw. They've been to doctors, they've been to psychiatrists, they've had electric shock and so on. They hear about it. And I think this is the last straw, and consequently it is the last straw for them and their money. And they come along and they do a psychological test on a piece of paper, and then they're eventually sold a course for many hundreds of pounds, and they take this. And of course, if the person doesn't progress, the evilness of this is so that if they do not progress, it's their fault. They must have more auditing. The case is deeper and thicker than first thought.
I've known many hundreds of them. And I should say the majority are people who, either in their childhood or even right to the moment when they took up Scientology, were people who lacked, they were the have-nots. They lacked education, mostly, most of them. They lacked any background, sort of social background, nothing stable in it. And of course many, many, many of them lacked health, I suppose, mental health or physical health. So there is a great deal of lack in the people to whom this Scientology does appeal.
Basically, its latest phase of development has been families break up, such as Michael Panetta. His family has been split up. He was ordered to disconnect from his wife.
They did it with my wife. She went down there, and from one moment to another, this little chit of a girl cast her to the outer fringes, you know, to Hades and back, and it was merely on her say-so during a 10-minute interview. In other words, what you might call my work, which I'd been working in Scientology somewhere in the region of about 10 years. In one moment, you could say that the whole thing was upside down, inside out.
I suppose, to use a hackneyed word, they're brainwashed to think it's so right. They cannot think anything else.
No, I think I'd know if I'd been brainwashed.
How would you know?
Well, look at me. Am I brainwashed?
I can't possibly tell you. You could be.
Well, then you don't know. See, I do.
But how do you know?
Well, I know.
Why did you finally leave?
Well, I finally saw the light of day, thank goodness. I finally realized that this is an organization which is creating or endeavoring to make me and other people feel guilty and work for nothing and virtually, supposedly adore Hubbard. And I'm afraid it's not within me to adore anyone, least of all Hubbard. Least of all Hubbard.
As far as I'm concerned, it's of no concern to me whether he makes $1 million a year out of it or not. As far as I'm concerned, he can have it because he's earned it. Because one thing I do know, regardless of what else happens, is the man does work about 20 hours a day at it. I mean, the amount of volume of wordage and tapes and books and everything come out is a fantastic achievement. So if he makes £1 million a day, and if he is making a lot of money, it's of no concern to me. I think that's wonderful.